My guest arrived from Madrid in 1993 with a green suitcase and two dreams: graduate from an American university and work for CNN. He did both. At 36, he became a playwright. His award-winning plays have been performed across the U.S. and Europe. He teaches at DePaul and Dominican University in Chicago, mentors writers at the Playwright Center in Minnesota, and leads an annual playwright intensive in one of my favorite cities in the world, Paris. At 54, he started his doctorate degree program. He created Blue Parrot, an artist salon in his Chicago home where writers, artists, friends, and strangers gathered around good food and wine because he believes hospitality is also an art. He's a playwright, teacher, mentor, director, a published author, and a lifelong learner. He's also my friend. His name is Emilio Williams. Welcome to the porch, Emilio. You're listening to Your Porch or Mine, where everyone's welcome to pull up a chair, share their story, and hopefully leave laughing at life's beautiful mistakes. I'm Diana Suarez Mucci, your host and your friend who's ready to listen, right here on Your Porch or Mine. Hola, Emilio. ¿Cómo estás?
Hola, Di.
So good to see your face. Thank you so much for being on Your Porch or Mine with me. I'm so excited about our conversation.
It's so great to be in your porch and just share a glass of wine with you.
Oh, yes. Salud, salud. Let's do it. I need to know what red you're having.
It's a Pinot Noir, but it's not that great, actually.
Okay. You see my face?
Yeah, mine was yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know what I'm having, to be honest with you. So I just think it was open too long. Normally I drink a nice glass of red, but this is okay. So, but anyway, cheers. Thanks for joining me. I just want to start off by saying how much I respect you and admire you, and how lucky I am that we got a chance to meet and to now a couple years later, we've become friends, and I've learned a ton from you. And I just want to say thank you for that. You know, you're a playwright, an educator. You're in the middle of a doctorate program. You've written a textbook. You're writing another book about playwriting. You're in the middle of writing a play. So you're very busy. And I love all those things about you, and I want to talk about them. But first of all, I also want to add that you just moved to Paris.
In January.
In January, just a couple months.
I've been going often for many years now, but finally I was able to move there in January full time. So that was great.
Yeah. Tell me about that. What brought you to Paris?
Well, the opportunity was to start my doctorate program at the University of London, Paris Institute. So it's a little bit confusing because I am doing my doctorate at the University of London, but from Paris, which is a great opportunity because I have an incredible group of experts helping me in my research, and my cohort is fantastic. And my walk to my office every day is through the most beautiful walk in the world, which you've seen, right? The Esplanade in Paris. So just fantastic lifestyle. I tell all my friends they are allowed to hate me right now. I won't hold it against you. You hate me. I'm lucky.
Yeah, Paris is one of my favorite cities in the world. And honestly, I'm a little jealous about that.
Why? What do you like about Paris?
I mean, oh gosh, what's not to like? I love the vibe. The vibe of the city, of the people, the architecture, the language, the food, the fresh bread, the cheese, the wine, the river walk, walking along the River Seine, the Eiffel Tower, the Notre Dame, which unfortunately is, it's under construction now, but I don't know, there's just something about it that's so special for me. And as a writer, it inspires me to just sit in one of the gardens, the Louvre. The gardens are beautiful. Just what inspires you there?
I have to say all of the above, the classical themes, but the difference with living there, though, staying there full time, is really the conversations, honestly, is everybody who has a level of education, right? And they're very educated at the level of a high school level, right, in France. For the most part, they go to the museums, they go to the movie theaters. Movie theaters, there's still lines of people going into the movie theater. It's a very important industry there, and people are still going to the movies in groups and then talking about them. The theaters are always packed. And I think what happens, when you go with friends of any background, business, medicine, science, arts, of course. You go out for dinner, but you have these great conversations about the things that are happening around the city. And that's something that has to do with the way I grew up in Madrid. I have to say that was the kind of way I grew up. And at times I miss that in the US kind of thing, right? Like the conversation is hyper politicized in the US or is banal. Sorry, I have to say at times, right? Like I remember being in dinners with people that were very close to me and I'm like, oh my God, I have nothing in common. In Baltimore, that was a big eye opener. And back in the day. And then, being able to do this in a city that is so international like Paris, I don't know. I find it very inspiring. I find it that you're challenged with ideas and discussions, and disagreements are feasible. People can disagree with each other. Nowhere on throne, right? I'm from Spain, so people sometimes you see them fighting at a bar and they're just fighting about soccer and football. It's not that we're fighting, it's that we are very animated about our ideas, right? But basically, I find the public discourse to be more open in countries that are southern countries because we have a more open demeanor around the table about eating and drinking and being with family and friends. And Paris is far north. Actually, if you look at the map, it's surprisingly far north. It's not a southern city, but it has a Catholic background. My partner Rob always says that the best kept secret about Paris is that the weather sucks, because really almost like London in a way, right? But culturally couldn't be any different. And of course, I'm dwelling here on tons of stereotypes and tropes, right?
Right.
To summarize something, you have to lean on those. And I think it is the conversations around the table that makes, for me, France, Italy, Spain, Greece, a lot of these countries so special.
Yeah.
Low meals.
Yeah, and I think that's so interesting that you're almost boomerang back to Europe, and you came here when you were 22 years old, right, from Madrid.
That's correct.
And I love your bio because I want to say, can I read it a little bit? Not the whole thing. I'm going to read a little bit. It says, you say, in 1993, you came with an old American Tourister green suitcase, which I am just imagining this young man with this green American Tourister suitcase, and 2 dreams. Graduating from an American university and then working for CNN in Atlanta. Like, it can't be more specific than like, I'm coming from Madrid to America for CNN.
Right. Only a 22-year-old would do something that crazy and get away with it. And I did it.
And you did it. But I mean, you accomplished that. You accomplished both of your dreams. Can you take me back to Madrid a little bit and tell me what inspired you? What inspired those dreams?
So in Madrid, after high school, great question, I studied journalism for 3 years. And at that time was the first Gulf War. It was when CNN, all the time we were watching the war live on our TVs. And I remember being in Madrid as a young journalist, student, right? Journalism student. And I was like, wow, I want to work with these people. This is insane. I mean, people forget, right? Now that Ted Turner just passed away, what an incredible revolution that was before internet and before even for us, cable. Even in Spain, we didn't have cable when that happened. In Spain, right? Like we were able through CNN to access live coverage of that war. And I for me, that was so life altering that I wanted to be around that people. I wanted to be that kind of journalist.
Yeah.
Right.
What was that experience like? I don't think we've ever talked about. I don't know that I knew that.
Yeah, I don't talk much about it. I'm very lucky that I had several big acts in my theater play of my life. And that one, the CNN, is very exciting one. I was in CNN in Atlanta for 3 years. And then I eventually came back to CNN in Washington, D.C. for 2 or 3 years. The return to CNN and Washington, D.C. coincided with the Monica Lewinsky scandal. And it was the time that CNN was purchased by Time Warner. And changed dramatically, and it wasn't what my dream was. I was very burnt out about how we were covering 24/7 things that were of no interest to me or to the world, right? They were very
It became only about Monica.
Right. Yeah. And it was at the same time the first bombings from in Eastern, from Al Qaeda, I think, and in Eastern Africa of the U.S. embassies happened, and almost nobody in America was paying attention because everybody was talking about Monica Lewinsky. And yeah, that kind of burned me out, and I went into communications and eventually communications and healthcare. And that was the kind of my day job for a long time until my first play opened in 2007. Around 2005, I call it the Great Fire of 2005. 2005, 2006, I made some major changes, and some major changes happened to me, and it was the great opportunity to become a writer, really, which is what I always wanted to be. So I got lucky that way, and my first play opened fairly early, shortly after that in Madrid, in 2017.
What was your first play?
Sorry, I'm so confused with this. 2007. So I get them all wrong.
Yeah.
2007.
Yeah, I figured. What was your first play?
It was called Strindberg Sonata, and it was 5 short plays, 5 10-minute plays inspired by August Strindberg. So it was very artsy, as much of my theater. But I was in a local festival in Madrid, got attention. It went to University of Salamanca. Eventually, this is something really weird. That play ended up playing in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Oh, wow.
Which I don't think is even in my bio at this.
Knoxville from Madrid.
Yeah, and so that was my beginning.
Amazing. I know, it's amazing. I was just going from journalism. I guess it isn't that much of a stretch when, I majored in English and theater and communications and education, where, I think that kind of all goes together, right? Telling a story. I know a lot of people that came from journalism, and you chose playwriting on the stage, in a theater, among a live audience. Tell me why theater?
Interesting, right? Nobody wakes up and decides to do that to themselves, right? Intuitive to become a playwright are not a very good business decision, let's put it that way. But I grew up in Madrid, so for example, I remember what a big deal it was for my parents to go to the theater. Mm-hmm. My mom dressing up, my dad dressing up, then coming back with the programs the next day and talking about the plays, and how much my family loved theater growing up. And then they eventually were taking me to the theater as well. At times when it was the kind of theater that I should be watching, or they thought I should be watching. And then I did theater. Well, in high school, I grew up in my elementary school and theater school. There was a great program, and I would see these kids older than me doing these incredible things. And I was fascinated by that. And then in the 3 years that I studied journalism in Spain, I was part of a theater group. And I directed and I acted, actually, which is I have a stage fright, so that was a nightmare. I learned very quick that I didn't want to be an actor. I hated it, but I love working with actors. I worked theater, and then it took time, and I do all other kinds of writing too, but that's the one that has really worked well for me, and also eventually as an educator as well. So.
And you're an award-winning playwright, so you really accomplished so much in that space. And when we first met, I do have to tell this story because I think it's so cool. So, Claudia, to tell. Oh yeah, let's have a glass.
My bad wine.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay. A mutual friend of ours, Claudia Quesada.
Great actress.
Amazing actress who just keeps getting better and better. I love her, and I'm going to have her on the show at some point pretty soon. She doesn't know it yet. But she and I worked together. I was introduced to her by another person that I was working with, and it was during COVID. And I said, it was COVID. We couldn't be live. And I decided to do like a 10-minute new play theater fest for Latine. And one of the girls that I knew, DePaul theater graduate, she said, oh, I know who could play you in this 10-minute play. It's called Breaking News, which has now become Growing Up with Big Hair. And so Claudia did such a phenomenal job. She did nailed it. And then, a couple of years later, I decided I'm going to make this is the whole play. And I brought her back in. We started working together, and I said, Claudia, I need a space. Like, do you have, and I've been going from back and forth, Florida and Chicago. She's like, I have the perfect place for you. I said, what? And she said, because I wanted an intimate space. It wasn't going to be a lot of people. And she said, have you heard of the Blue Parrot? I said, the who? She's like, the Blue Parrot. Do you know Emilio Williams? I said, no. She's like, he's an amazing playwright. I've worked with him, and he has this amazing like space in his home. I go, what? So she connects us over email, and you so graciously opened your doors to your home. And it wasn't even the space. You didn't charge me a penny.
Of course.
You opened the door. Not only did you not charge me a penny, but you had a spread of food, of beautiful like cheese spread and cuts and like meats and bread and ensalada. And then you were like, I'm making dinner. And you're making dinner? And then you served a whole dinner, and there were drinks. And what a gracious host, but even then, like so wonderful of you to invite a group of strangers into your home, the cast that you didn't even know. You didn't even know me, but you opened the door and welcomed us as if we were longtime friends. Tell me about the Blue Parrot and why.
Wow.
Why you started it, what it means, but...
Well, first, you came recommended by Claudia, right? Which is a reliable source.
That's helpful. Thanks, Claudia. We love you.
I think the Blue Parrot, so, after my partner and I got together and got serious, we realized that there was a need in the city of Chicago of mingling people in interesting ways. This same thing I've been saying about France, right? Like, Rob knew people from the scientific community that he felt are bored and are not in touch with the arts beyond being a donor or buying season tickets for a theater, right? And at my end, I have a lot of theater and artists in my life who I knew needed a space. So we created this thing called the Blue Parrot that lasted for 10 years. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist physically, but it exists virtually now. That was exactly thought of as a place to do what we did with your play, right? Like presenting new work. It could be paintings, it could be theater, it could be a performance, it could be sculptures, it could be installations, it could be poetry readings, and connect people from different audiences to react to that new work and support the artists that way. We donated the space through the years to non-for-profits to do fundraising for the arts, mostly. Some for healthcare as well, but mainly for the arts. And it was a beautiful project. In 1924 North Halsted, it became a place, right? But then with the move to Paris and other moves and other things in life, we were not able to continue the project as it was, but we continued to work on similar ways. We believe in that need to get together in a room to talk about things, right? And food has to be there. One thing that I'm looking back now that we closed, right, that you mentioned, that makes me very proud is that we almost never cater. We always made our own meals. I think a couple of times, maybe for more corporate functions, we had catering, but the point was to eat together. And I remember for Rob, it was very clear from the beginning that we had to have a very nice kitchen because cooking is part of the art. So right. We have chefs from time that came to cook for non-for-profits, and it was a beautiful project. The end of the era now that it has closed, right?
It's so sad. Que lástima. I think about we need that here. I'm from Chicago, born and raised, and the theater community has been amazing. In a different way, it's very hard to get a space that, somebody would be so gracious and kind to open up, like in a salon fashion, right? Where you feel it's cozy, it's intimate, you feel... it was just such a beautiful experience. So thank you again for opening your doors. And I hope, and I know and now, I have to say that you do the same in Paris, in your beautiful home in Paris with the view of the Eiffel Tower and your, the Parisian apartment, right? The beautiful condo. I love it. Sometimes the elevator doesn't work and I got to walk up.
That's the one time that hasn't worked in all these years. So
all years, it had to be me walking up
the elevator.
But you also do that there, you have your spread, you have your breakfast. So I want to talk about too, your playwright intensive that you do every year in Paris that I was blessed enough to join you this year. And last year, you and I worked on Growing Up with Big Hair together, one-on-one. But tell me about like that playwright intensive and why you're drawn to like helping people like you do. Like you have this like beautiful big heart to want to help other artists and writers and to help bring their work to life. Honestly, you've helped me so much, but I want to ask you about that because I know you do this for other people, not just me. So tell me about
yes. But to be fair, I do it for plays and playwrights that I love, right? At the same time, right? But I think, I don't know, sometimes what do I wish someone would have taught me earlier that I had to learn by myself? Or always I think, what would I have liked someone to do for me when I was starting as a playwright and I didn't have anyone to do it for me, kind of thing? I think of that often in a way, right? So if I love the playwright and I love the play, it's an intuitive reaction to try to figure out how I can help.
Which is what you said to me after you sat in the reading at Blue Parrot, and you and Rob were cracking up.
My father used to say the good thing about not lying is that you don't have to remember anything.
That's true. So you genuinely liked
you, but he was sincere, so therefore.
Yeah, and you were like, "How can I help?" It was amazing because if you like something, I could understand that. Like, but let me ask you this, because you are selective, right? Because the playwright intensive is a small group. What draws you to the story, a play? Like, what drew you to growing up with big hair and saying yes to me, and being a mentor for me, coaching me? You helped me tighten that script up. You taught me so many things I want to talk about, but what draws you to the play or the playwright?
Well, all the plays or all playwrights that I engage in any way are totally different. They have to be their own plays. They have to be their own playwrights. I have my own plays that I write. I have enough with that. I have no interest in writing your play or someone else's play, right? So it's this idea. I think one thing that attracts me is when I hear something that is deep and funny, or I hear something or I read something and I can see it. It's like, oh my God, this is a great show. It's going to be a great show, right? It may not be there yet, but I can, there's something about, you can almost smell it or taste it in an early draft. And I really get a kick out of like bringing that early draft to something that the playwright wants to do, right? It's not about me rewriting your play. It's about giving you the tools for you to be able to write the best version of that play that could possibly exist. I'm going to your play. I mean, I didn't know you. You guys came over. We're in our space, and this play is read to us, and we were laughing hysterically through this draft. And it's a work in progress. It's an art to know when something is a work in progress and when something is final, right? That's something that is, not everybody can do that, but many people in Chicago are very prepared for that process and help with that process, and that's a wonderful thing about that town. But I remember laughing so hard. And this is your play, the story about you growing up as a Latina girl in the west side of Chicago. Part of your family is from Haiti, part of your family is from Puerto Rico. My partner is from Boston, part of his family is from Eastern Europe, part of his family is from Ireland. I'm from Spain. Part of my family is from Chicago, but near west side, not related to where your family was. Right, so nothing to do in common, technically. But it's so universal what your story is telling about growing up insecure, about, how the little drama can get so easily get out of control when you're young. Right? Like how the little things can be really big and how some really big things can become like nothing. Because when you grow up, you have a different sense of drama and priorities. And I thought your play was, at the end of the day, so funny, right? Because the one thing I cannot stand is like plays that are not funny. They're taking themselves too seriously in the wrong way, right? And your play is so profound, and being able to be so deep and profound with humor, right? Right, of course I want to be involved and I want to do it right. It's hilarious.
Thank you. And, when you said yes to me to work together, like you were a dramaturg, coach, is it script? Is it script doctor? You were just.
They call them the script doctors. That's a great word.
You like the script doctor. And one of the things that you shared with me, which I didn't even think for a minute, right? You literally provided your feedback, all the positive feedback. And then you were like, by the way, did you know that you have, I don't know, 200 question marks in your play. I was like, what? And that the question marks stop the play from being propulsive. And I loved that. Like, I'd never considered that ever. And I don't know if I've ever read it or heard it before. But when I went back to look at why was I asking questions, the question better be real. And I better really need an answer, or like turn it into a statement, and changed everything. Like,
well,
and
that's
I
a
know,
little trick from the toolbox, right? Like one of many. I learned that myself. Nobody taught me that, but there is something in American theater dialogue that has that tick of continuing, like having people talking in questions that
yeah,
we don't realize we do as writers. And once you catch yourself doing it, the play becomes better. Yeah, it's a one little trick.
I love it. And that brings me to how you're writing something to help people, right? Tell me about the book that you're writing.
Yeah, so what happened is that when I was a resident playwright at Chicago Dramatist, we will do these things called a script lab, where playwrights will send a draft and then you have to comment on it and give them advice. And that was part of the role of being a resident playwright. And I ended up doing a few a year. And, I took it very seriously, because you should not be having an opinion about another writer's work unless you have something to offer. I will do these reports that they're almost like consultant reports with PowerPoints and, And after 4 or 5 of those, I started realizing that I was repeating myself. And I started like, wait a minute. And through the students and the needs of my students and my own needs, we realized we needed a method to be looking at these drafts, right?
Yeah.
So what we've been working on as a community, all of us, is a manual on how to fix your draft. It's very inside baseball, right? This is just for other playwrights, but everybody finds it very useful. And it's very rewarding to see early drafts, what they can become by the end of an intensive or 10-week class or after this process. So I'm putting all this in a book, and I'm very committed to something called open source, which is a way of sharing your intellectual property that is free for the world and people can use and reuse. So both students and teachers can use these textbooks for free, because textbooks are very expensive and the price of access to textbooks is a barrier for many students. So this is going to be my second open source. I'll be loading this summer into online, and people will be able to access it online for free or print it out and buy a printout copy if they want to have it as a printout. But basically, it's fully, accessible for free.
Unbelievable. Wow, that's so generous of you. I was saying, we need more people like Emilio Williams.
Oh, I have to say something. Academic writing doesn't make money to the writers. It's a very weird business, right? So therefore, I did a certificate of open source with Creative Commons. And it was an education about how we can make a difference, really, by making things accessible to other people.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It is the ultimate goal of academia anyway.
Right, exactly, right. To spread that. And I can't wait. So when is the textbook for the history?
The history of theater textbook is already out there. People can visit it. It's a beautiful project with the Paul, the theater school at the Paul, which is a gem, right, in Chicago, with 2 other professors who were teaching a series of classes on history of theater, and we developed our own textbook with support of the state of Illinois and the management of the Paul Library. And it's an open source textbook. Before that, we were asking our students to buy these expensive textbooks that were like $120. It's a lot of money. A lot of these textbooks for colleges go for hundreds of dollars in the United States. Sometimes you buy them secondhand and they're not necessarily cheaper.
Exactly. Amazing that you offer that and the school. And then the next book, the sort of the instructional how to write or rewrite a play. What's the title of it?
We'll go back and forward. Troubleshooting your complete draft, or somewhere around there. We're still working with the title. But the idea is like, how do you take a draft and you fix it? It's very inside baseball. I don't know. Yeah, your audience are probably so bored. because this is so technical.
No way. I want to get a little bit more into, I have to say something because we were talking about this yesterday about curiosity, because I think that curiosity in you potentially brought you to Paris, is bringing you to get your doctorate. But you told me something that and I keep thinking, obviously, as a writer, we are all, or artists, we are curious. But you said something to me yesterday that I thought was fascinating about your father and what he would have in the center of his room, almost accessible at any time, which I think might be super influential in your curiosity.
Absolutely. Thank you for remembering the story. I grew up with a dad who we will be talking at home, and he would say, "Yeah, I wonder about that." And he will turn around and pull a book from the encyclopedia, right, and get an answer. There was no Google then. There was no internet. Our encyclopedia was the center of my family life in a way. You look back, right? I remember he was always taking out the encyclopedia for some fact. Always very curious, well reader. I actually, some of these books here are from my dad. There's always books behind us. There's always books. In all my crazy life and living in different continents and moved so much and all different careers, I know where each one of my books is. I can find you the book I want to talk about. That's what I like teaching on Zoom with my bookshelves behind, because I can pull a book and show an example if I need to. I guess that comes, it's another version of that. But my father graduated from undergrad at 68 and he finished his master's at 72. Was an adjunct for 1 year before he fully retired. My dad was an incredible model that way. So it's not surprising that I am doing my doctorate.
Right.
If whatever I am.
We don't want to talk about your age right now, but
I have nothing wrong with my age.
I know, of course. What a beautiful example of your dad who instilled in you potentially, right? Instilled in you this love of learning, of reaching for the book, of trying to find out, of researching, because you're now researching.
He's self-taught, right?
Yeah, he's self-taught with encyclopedias. And I love that so much that shame on me. I don't have a shelf of books behind me, and I love books. I love reading and love writing, and I feel like we've lost a little bit. So many of the bookstores shut down.
There's no shame. Not be shaming yourself or anyone about it. But I have to say, good news on the bookstore front. Independent bookstores are doing terrific. When they're good in the cities, and in Chicago, we have Anna Bridge, who is fantastic. We have Madison Books. I mean, you go and you discover so many things because they're so well curated, right? And the people who work in these bookstores read the books and they can recommend. And it's always something that you wouldn't get from an online store. The name will not be named. But also, it is the world we live in, right? I have this, right here, we have a world that is playing against our ability to keep focused on one thing for a minute. I was a hyperactive young man, and I have to do these efforts to calm down and be focused and being able to write on my journals and be able to read books and finish them, right? Because that's another issue. So my life is always being a struggle and a battle to claim my time and my space and my focus. So by the time this technology came, I was so shocked by it because it played against everything that I was trying to avoid in a way, right? And to this day, I have to figure out tricks not to be absorbed by our technology. It's unavoidable. It's a struggle, right? You have to be very conscious of what is happening. So, for example, I don't have my notifications on. Because if I have my notifications on and things are beeping, I wouldn't be able to be having this conversation with you. And then I have time difference. I have people in Spain. I always have people in other time zones. I would be ringing all night or whatever, or it would be, it's too distracting. So I get to the messages when I get to the messages. I hope this is not too annoying for people, but I think the idea of being eternally available instantly for the New York Times notifications or for blah, 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 is out of question for me. I mean, I couldn't function. I wouldn't be able to do the writing and the reading that I do. I couldn't be having the relationships that I have, etc. Right?
Constantly on the phone. And I mean, I agree with you. We were talking about this too, about the distractions that we have, that this new technology is bringing. And you can't even sit across the table and have a dinner and a chat, like our porch chat, without somebody looking at their phone.
Yeah.
And I have been guilty of that, where I'm like,
course
oh,
we are.
what if one of the kids needs me? Or I have to have at least close to me. God forbid I wait 30 minutes to get back to somebody. we're
What
like,
your kids want is for you not to text them.
wait, say that again.
What your kids want is to be left alone. They don't want their mom to be tested.
True. So true. They're like, they're busy.
You know, you and I are from the time of the phone lines.
Right.
Where the whole family had a phone, and someone will call and Emilio, it's for you, or whoever, right? And we share, or like you will come home and you'll have the messages that your friends left with your dad or your mom.
Exactly.
So on, so call, and so on, so call. And it was very important for you to keep track of who called while other people were away from the house and all that, right?
Exactly.
Anyway, and
partly the fun of it. But I do want to ask about, and I know we've got a few more minutes, but I don't want to leave without, now we're talking about the distractions and the phone, the technology, and your play that you're working on, American Sink. Is that?
American Sink, yes.
Yeah.
That's the just finished this week draft.
Okay.
We're
Tell me
working
more about American Sink, because I think it's kind of related to what we're talking about, right?
Is it in a way, I wonder? Yeah, well, there is a family. It's a spoof of the traditional American kitchen drama. It's like a sitcom that starts, but it derails into something very demented, I would say. It's very dark. I was like, how do I write these dark things? I'm not this dark. But sometimes it's with humor, but it derails into a tragedy. But it is true that now that you mentioned this, because there is something about this family that are not quite present for each other. Mm-hmm. And it is true that the kids of this family have a second life online. And maybe the mom too, at one point, she's like doing something on the phone that indicates that maybe she's, finding a new boyfriend online. Like, we all use that. I mean, everything is here, right? Everything is here. So yeah, it is related to that. But I think the play at the end of the day, that's kind of a topic. I think the themes, right, is like the lack of communication. I think, the thing to think about that, it was already in an old play I wrote called Smartphones. It was a farce that I wrote before I owned my own smartphone. And that one opened in 2012. And it got to play in Mexico and in Washington, D.C., Chicago, Madrid. And it talked about lack of communication at the end of the day, right? Because the thing is like, yeah, we have all this technology, but are we truly communicating better, right? We can know so many data points, fake and not fake, true and not true, right? But at the end of the day, are we really knowing each other better? Those are questions, right?
Yeah. I do something, and I'm really enjoying our time. I do something towards the end where I call it the last sip. So we have a last sip, and I'll ask you a question. So our last sip.
It's getting better. Sometimes when it rests and it opens, it's better.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Also, as you get drunker, it's better too.
The more sips you have, it's just so tasty.
Sorry, let's have a last sip.
Yeah. Wait, one more. Oh my God, I miss you. All right. So I was debating on what to ask you here because I have so many questions, but I'm still like intrigued about your father having the encyclopedia in the center.
Cliff.
I swear.
Like that was such a character.
It's so cool. And that he's like a lifelong learner like you are. In him having that sort of as the center of his room, what would you say is the center of your room?
Wow. I think it's my family, but I want to say for me, family is not the biological family, but is that now they're calling it the chosen family. It's a neat term. It's very cool, but really that in the inner circle of people who really feed your soul.
Yeah.
With laughter, but also people that you can calm in difficult times, right?
Yeah.
But that at the end of the day have a wonderful sense of humor.
Make you laugh. That's
Yeah.
too.
So I think
Laughter.
that it would be a table. I think at the center of my room would be a table.
I
And
see that.
there would be food involved,
A
wine.
table with food,
Yeah.
wine,
I think it's important.
and your people.
I think so. What do you think? You know me enough. Come on.
I mean, you're right. This is you. That is exactly,
I think
and
so,
you.
right?
That's your like happy place.
Yeah, I have always had this really weird mix where I need that table full of people and
Yeah.
food and drinks and conversation. And I also have my time alone. I'm a very weird mix of introvert and extrovert. If we have a very busy social life and I've been seeing too many people for too many days, I shut down. I'm so tired. And I need time with my notebooks and my writing and my books and I go away. So I have both sides of that, right? So let's say then, in conclusion, as my students say on their essays, in conclusion, at the center of my life would be a table. At that table would be people eating some days, and another time there would be notebooks and books. I think we're getting there to somewhere there. Yeah, thank you.
I love that.
Good, I never articulated all these things. It's the thing about great questions and great conversations, right? They force you to find the words.
Yeah.
And
And
even
like,
know yourself better. Know yourself better through your friends.
it's true. Dig in a little bit deeper. I feel like in a lot of ways that I don't want to take your analogy because that's the table is like the best. I kind of feel like I can steal some of it. I love people. The center of mine, I would say, is that family. And you're right. Like it's family could be family, but also the chosen family. It's beautiful. And, I think that maybe writers have this in common, especially I think playwrights who love the theater and who love the collaboration aspect of it because we love to be around actors. And, once we're done writing and having our journals out and writing and alone on the table, then we're like, all right, everybody come in around the table and let's eat and read it.
Yeah. It's a very social form of writing. It's less lonely than other forms of writing, right?
Yeah.
That's what I think is so important for those writing plays to have a theater community and a group of actors, right? Like we started talking about Claudia Quesada. Maybe we can end there. What a great example of a generous, talented actor that you can always call to get to read for you, right? And that makes a difference for a playwright because until we don't hear it out loud, we don't truly get a sense of what we're doing and the tempo and many other things, right? It's so important to hear it from great actors.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
She's that person I want at my table. And I know
Me too, and I just lucky to have her at my table. And not so much lately, right? Like one of the downsides of this glamorous life that I have is very glamorous, I get it. But it's also, since I came at 22, and that goes to the beginning of the conversation too, I always have people very far away.
Right.
From me, right? And I miss them, and I always wish I would have spent more time. And Claudia is definitely one of those people that you can hardly get enough of.
I know.
Right? So interview her quick so your audience can know Claudia and how hilarious she is.
She's so great. I just saw her in a reading this weekend. The Chicago Latino Alliance, Theater Alliance, had a Inicio's reading of new plays. And just as generous as she always is, she was reading for this play and did a phenomenal job as always. And it was so good to see her. So I'm lucky that I come back to Chicago often. I have family here, and so I get to see her. And she's a blessing. So, Claudia, we love you. Shout out.
Yes, you have to interview Claudia soon.
I will. Emilio, muchas gracias. Te quiero mucho. I'm so grateful for you. I can't wait to see you again. I hope that I know you're going back from Paris to Michigan, and then maybe we can cross paths and let's see if we can finish where we started with growing up with big hair in Chicago. I think we left off
Amazing. Diana, I admire your talent, your sense of humor, and I learned so much from you. So thank you for this opportunity to talk more.
Thank you so much. All right, say hi to Rob. Big kisses. Besos.
Bye-bye.
Cuídate. Ciao, ciao. Bye. If today's conversation made you laugh, think, or just breathe a little easier, share it with someone you love. Catch the podcast wherever you listen and follow me on Instagram for more. Remember, the porch is always open and there's always a spot for you.